You can hear me? Good. Okay. I'm not going to be like your other speakers. I don't know anything about electronics and exhausts or acceleration other than faster and slower. And what an amazing opportunity it is to be here. And I want to thank Scott Coy for inviting me. This last February, I was driving back from Los Angeles, and I was sick of it after being out there for about 2 months, and had to get back to Michigan to enjoy part of the polar vortex, so I wouldn't miss out entirely. And he told me about this expo, and he had read my book, and he said, you know, Todd, what I want you to do is inspire these guys and girls so they can go out there to their job and build these cruisers for the force and do the absolute very best that they could. So I thought, that I got it. That's a great mission. I can easily accomplish that. And as I was out here watching the seminar today, as a patrol officer my entire career, I was gifted to get a brand new car and get in it and go out and do great things. But how did all that stuff get in there to me was simply magical. It just appeared. The next thing I knew, here's car 1161, a brand new black and white, and with the highest seniority on the shift, I'm going to get the new car. So the behind the scenes aspect, I'm finally able to see. And what you should realize, and maybe you do, but maybe you don't realize the magnitude of it, is all of you boys and girls here are the designers, the manufacturer, the orderers, the person who makes the decision on where the MDT goes, where the patrol rifle goes, where the shotgun goes, where the light switch goes, what type of light switch you get, where the radar is mounted, where the DVR system is at, all that jazz. You are the critical link for officer safety when that mobile office hits a tree, or when another patrol car smashes into another patrol car and kills the officers inside. Just by the design alone can make a difference in officer safety. And I'm sure that you've all been to battle with those that have said, yeah, we really like that printer up behind the passenger seat. And Scott was telling me a story yesterday where he was talking with a department in Michigan, and he said, there is no way in hell that I'm going to mount that printer behind the officer's head, because you're asking to just kill your officer when he's in a collision. That's the decisions that you are all making. And it is so vital and critical as you leave this expo at the end of the week and go off to your departments and design these cruisers of the future. It's the fleet. And it's not just, as I look at it, it's not just a fleet week for patrol vehicles. It's the whole force in the country, the whole fleet. It's like the entire military, the entire police force fleet is in the hands of you and your intelligence and your mind. So as you design these cars, from a patrol officer's viewpoint, make it as survivable as possible. And as I go on over the next 45 minutes to an hour, what I want to relay to you are situations that happened to me and moments in my 25 years as an officer that directly relate to you. And you're going to find moments of inspiration in them. And I hope that you take something away from my talk here over this hour. And when you get into the book, it's all going to come back to you. So I'll just talk a little briefly about this book. This thing was a complete accident. I had absolutely no intentions on writing a book when I retired from Kalamazoo in 2012. When I retired from the force, I thought, well, I guess that's that. It was here before I knew it. And, I made my last traffic stop all the way up to the very last 5 minutes of my shift and thanked the guy for speeding and being that one that I always wondered who it was going to be. And, of course, didn't write him a ticket. And have a nice day. There you go. And that was the end of it. I was so far from reality, I had no idea. So I took off. Like anyone else, you retire, and at 45 years old, I decided I'd go out west to Los Angeles and enjoy the sunshine. Well, as I'm out there, it was Pearl Harbor Day of 2012. And I thought to myself, all right, it's December 7th, what am I going to do today? So I sat at the laptop outside of Starbucks on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'm just going to start writing down everything I did at work, because as I get older, I don't want to forget all that cool stuff that I did. So I just started going at the laptop, just randomly writing stuff out. Well, June came around, and I thought, maybe I should print this thing off. I had over 500 pages in a Word document. Printed it off, corrected all of my spelling errors, all the grammatical mistakes, and went back through and redid the whole thing again and organized it so it made some sense. So it started in the beginning of the career all the way to retirement. And I took 25 years of life and jammed it into 286 pages. Now, the people that I ended up writing this to, as I realized I'm actually writing a book, I wanted the general public, the people that have no idea what goes on in our life. And I know there are some normal people out here. There are some civilians in the crowd amongst you that have decisions to make in regards to the fleet. So you were one of my target audiences. I wanted the real world to actually have an understanding, not the CNN version, not the Fox News or the Hollywood version of what our job as cops is like, but what it was like, at least through my eyes, in my patrol car over that period of time. So I talk about the calls that I went to, the ones where I nearly lost my life early in the career, all the way up to when my partner Eric Zapata was shot and killed and murdered on April 18th of 2011 on Hayes Park in Kalamazoo. And I explained to the public exactly what was running through my mind, why I made the decisions that I did, and if I could do it all over again, those decisions I would have changed, even the mistakes I made. Throughout the book, I pretty much write like I talk. So as you read it, my voice is going to come back to you. The opening scene in the book starts out on March 4th of 1990. When I went through the police academy way back in 1988, and some of you obviously were before that, but if you think back to the 80s, didn't training suck? I mean, if you think back to what it's compared to today, training was unacceptable by today's standards. There was no such thing as less lethal force options. You had clipboard, microphone on the radio, a slow rotating, moving, oscillating light bar, and probably a Pontiac Grand Fury, or an older Crown Vic, or an older Caprice, a boxcar as we used to call them in Kalamazoo, and a handgun, and handcuffs, and you fought with people. That's what you did. I was completely unprepared for the physical altercation that I was about to endure. Here's what it was. I really don't look that much different, I don't think. That's me at the ripe old age of 20 and not knowing a damn thing about what it was like to go up against someone that is hell-bent on killing you. I did absolutely everything I could possibly do wrong except one little thing on this traffic stop. Juan Avila is his name. He's still alive. I should have pulled the trigger. If I could do it all over again, I would have. If I would have known anything about force options, I could have been completely justified in using deadly force. But I didn't. We fought to the bitter end, and both of us are alive today to thank God for it and talk about it. I pulled this car over for speeding, 48 miles in a 35 zone. I thought, no big deal. This is the first traffic stop of the night. Just after midnight in March in Michigan, it was 40, it was foggy, there was still snow on the ground. It was relatively warm. Completely unprepared for the fight of my life that I was about to be faced with. Juan pulls into his driveway. I pull right in behind him. I never called out my traffic stop. Fatal error number one. He gets out of the car. I get out of the car. Sir, have a seat back in your vehicle. Fuck you, he replies. I thought, well, okay, someone's going to go to jail. I need to see your driver's license. He turns and walks away from me, walking towards his house. In my mind, I thought, I need to grab him before he gets into his house. That's what I'm thinking. I have no idea what I'm going to do and what's going to happen as soon as I walk up behind Juan Rico, as I call him in the book, and grab onto his left arm. As soon as I grab onto him, there is a shock to my face and a flash of light. I didn't know what hit me. I thought I was either shot in the face, stabbed in the face. He had me in a headlock and was beating me repeatedly, punching me and punching me and punching me and punching me. I couldn't get out of that. This guy was huge. He had a death grip around my neck. I had no plan other than all of the blood that was gushing from my nose made it awfully slippery around his arm. And I was able to slither my way out and get away from him. I increased reactionary gap without even realizing I was increasing reactionary gap. He charged after me. Now we're at the mobile office that the fleet manager would have built. He pins me right in front of the car, right on the hood, a beautiful white Chevy Impala that will soon be covered in bright red arterial bleeding. And he proceeds to beat the living crap out of me while I'm on my back. He's up on top of me like a madman, punching me and punching me and punching me. And he's saying, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, over and over and over. I squirm to the right and I land right on my hip, right on my gun belt, right in the snow. At this point, it feels like fire is in my lungs. I'm just trying to breathe. I'm trying to get my dimensions about myself. I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Where am I at? I'm totally exhausted. My fingers were so cold. I remembered that. My cold fingers and breathing in fire is what it felt like. I stood back up. I screamed into my radio, County 322, I need backup, North Popple and Front Street. No shoulder mic. We didn't even have those back then. He comes at me again. Radio goes flying. I get back away from him. He's now kind of exhausted. This is a big guy. He was about 250 pounds. He's leaning over on his kneecaps, breathing heavily, and I thought to myself, I need to shoot this guy. There's no other option. There's no pepper spray. Tasers hadn't been invented yet. And the absolute worst possible thought entered my mind. And some of you probably know what it's going to be. Legal ramifications. I thought the worst possible thing I could think. What the local headlines would read. White police officer guns down unarmed Mexican. That's what I thought. The thought of using deadly force immediately went away. Clearly, I could have used it. The totality of circumstances were all right there. The only thing that came to my mind was, I need to fight. I have to fight. I'm a cop. That's what I do. I need to fight. Still, not knowing what I did, I ran towards him. He's bent over, leaning on his kneecaps. And I gave him the knee strike of my life. And I was shocked that it actually worked. He fell on the ground. We're now at the back left corner of the patrol vehicle by the door, by the back door. I get the handcuffs on him. As I'm handcuffing him, I'm feeling myself being struck in the back of the head. It turns out his wife had come out of the house and was using a broom handle and was beating me on the back of the head. I was able to find my radio and scream into the radio that I needed an ambulance. Those were my final words until I woke up in the back of an ambulance looking at those 6 bright lights in the ceiling. I could feel myself being moved around. I could tell that I was being backboarded. But it felt like it was a dream, that I was just in some imaginary land, not knowing what was happening, not knowing what was going on. And I remember opening up my eyes in that ambulance and being all strapped in, time sped back up again. I realized I wasn't dead. And I thought to myself, $8.32 an hour, I quit. I am not doing this job. It is not worth it. And at that moment in time, it was the best moment that could have ever happened. Jim Nelson was the name of the paramedic. And he looked down at me over my head that was all neck braced in and strapped down to the backboard. And he said, "Todd, you can't quit. You're a cop. You don't know how to do anything else." I thought to myself, you're right. I can't quit. I'm a police officer, and we don't give up. That was the life-changing event that made me think of one thing from that point on. Always throw the first punch. Always throw the first punch and hit him as hard as humanly possible. And it seemed to work from that point on. But we've all been in those situations where you've been either depressed or you've been shoved into a position in your life or in your job, and it might seem as though it's depressing and go nowhere. Find a moment in your life and just tell yourself, you're going to make that position as good as you possibly can while you're there. I was lucky enough to get hired in Kalamazoo shortly after that. This incident took place in a small town called Lawrence in Van Buren County in southwest Michigan. We had one car, 3 officers, a chief and 2 patrol officers. There wasn't much going on other than traffic and hoping that you were doing the right thing. There was no mentorship or anything like that. I became a drill sergeant in 1991 with the Army. During Desert Storm, the Army decided in their infinite wisdom that they would send me to drill sergeant school in Fort Benning. That's where my training career began. And ever since then, I have been involved in training soldiers in the Army and in the Army Reserve, and also training our new cadets in the Police Academy. 2 of those officers in Kalamazoo I want to talk about are unfortunately not with us anymore. This is Officer Owen Fisher. He is from the Flint Police Department, just outside of Detroit. And he was one of my students in 2005. He graduated from the academy in Kalamazoo, and his mother took this photo. She gave this to me. This is the one she cherishes the most. I told her I wanted to write about her son in this book. I wanted to memorialize him so that no one would forget him. But the sad truth to Owen's death was he was in field training. He was in phase 1 of field training. He was riding in the passenger seat of that patrol car in Flint, Michigan. His FTO was driving. They had been responding, emergency status, to an armed robbery call. The suspect had fled. There was a police chase. They were responding, lights and sirens, as we all would. The pursuit was terminated. It had ended. They had turned off their lights and sirens, and they were driving just perfectly fine and normal. They approached an intersection in Flint. They stopped, and they looked both ways. They saw nothing coming. The patrol car pulled out, and another police officer who did not hear the radio traffic was still driving emergency status, blew right through that stop sign, and nailed Owen Fisher right in the passenger side of that vehicle and killed him instantly. That was in July of 2005. He had no chance of survival, none. And it wouldn't be 2 weeks later that I lost another one of my students. This is Scott Bierstedt. Scott was 21 years old when he lost his life. And at the time, he had worked in Mattawan, Michigan, when he was killed. His first job is this picture in Cassopolis. He had several write-ups for driving too fast. Citizens complained about his driving when he worked in Cassopolis. Imagine that. He was hired in Mattawan. He received a call. He was in field training also. His training officer Scott Hutchins was in the passenger side of the vehicle this time. And they had received a report of a reckless driver on Interstate 94 in Kalamazoo County headed westbound toward Chicago. So they went out there to the highway, and lo and behold, that vehicle that they were looking for exited the Mattawan exit. And it's not stopping. Scott is in pursuit, northbound on a county road. Well, Scott got up to well above 90 miles an hour and found a small little curve in that county road as they are going north out of Mattawan, and lost control of his patrol car. He also found the largest maple tree along the entire street. And he hit that tree over 90 miles an hour. I believe the state police report was near 98.7 miles an hour to be exact. And he hit it backwards. He did not have his seatbelt on. And to be quite honest, I don't think it would have made a difference, because the maple tree split the car in half from behind. But what killed him was on the dashboard of the patrol vehicle was his metal clipboard. And I'm sure that's one of your pet peeves. Don't put anything up there. You've got a radar unit up there, and I pray to God that that thing is bolted down, not Velcroed down, like I found the radar in my cruisers in Kalamazoo before. Because at 98 miles an hour, it blows up. If it's not tied down, it's moving. The clipboard impaled him in the bridge of the nose and entered his brain and was stuck in his head. His clipboard murdered him. He killed himself driving too fast. Owen Fisher, killed by another police officer. Predictable? Yeah. You go that fast, you lose control, something's going to happen. Preventable? Yes. Both of these deaths were preventable. Absolutely. So think about the design. When you're designing that cruiser, bolt it down, tie it down, and think worst case scenario. When the officer loses control, think of Scott, think of Owen, new kids, driving this beast of a cruiser that you have created. They're going to mess it up. Make that thing as indestructible as you possibly can when they hit something or when they hit themselves. So you find yourself in this situation as a fleet manager. How many of you really, and be honest, want to be in this position that you're in? Raise your hands. You love being a fleet manager and you're there. Some of you are car people. I know you are. All right, so everyone else whose hand is down, I'm assuming that you are voluntold to be in this position, or you get lucky enough to have it, and that's where you're at. Maybe you don't feel good, bad, indifferent about the whole thing. But I want you to realize just how vital it really is. In 2009, President Obama decided we were going to have a surge in Afghanistan. And I found myself being plucked out of civilian life, plucked out of the police department, and from the 95th Division of the Army Reserve, and as a previous community policing officer, a police officer, a former drill sergeant, and an infantryman and a paratrooper, the nation decided the best place for me to be at that moment in my life was in southern Kandahar province, Afghanistan. I was proud to go. I mean, for those of you who have served your country, it's the most, as far as I know, so far, it's been the most honorable thing I could have ever done, is to project our virtues and help instill pride in someone's nation other than ourselves. So my job as a combat advisor was to build and oversee a $1.2 million project of gravel, sniper fence, and tents to build the 9th Basic Warrior Training Site for the Afghan National Army. I had a great interpreter, a 21-year-old Tajik who spoke 8 different languages. And after I put a gun to his head and explained the rules of life to him on how he should never cross me, we had a wonderful relationship after that. But he kept me out of a lot of trouble. That young man was the only voice I had with 5,000 other Afghans. And the Army told me, the big Army, as we call it, They said, Master Sergeant Christensen, you have 9 months. 9 months to build this basic training site in Kandahar. Hop on a plane and good luck. And they gave me a map of what they thought it should look like and a 10-digit grid coordinate. So I found it. Well, what I found in that upper left-hand slide is a 1978 Russian minefield that the Army thought from the satellite view looked like a great place to build stuff. But no one had been there for a ground truth reality of what actually existed underneath the dirt in the Red Desert in southern Kandahar. And this is about 45 minutes northeast of Pakistan. Not the most friendly place on the planet in 2009. So I thought to myself, oh God, I've got 9 months to build this thing and $1.2 million of American tax dollars to spend doing it. And Kandahar local nationals that I'm going to hire at about $10 a day in flip-flops and pajamas that I hope won't try to blow me up. So it's similar to being shoved to a position, and maybe it's like you in your fleet manager position. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to do the best possible job I can. So I got a hold of Kabul, and I said, hey, I need a demining team because it's leftover stuff from the Soviets, and it's unfertile ground. You can't go there. That picture on the right-hand side, that's the bare land, and it's all craters. That's where the demolition team had either dug up or blown up the leftover ordnance that we found from the Russians. And at the end of the day, $1.2 million later, on the bottom right-hand corner, that's how much gravel and tents actually cost, believe it or not. And the one on the left is my interpreter. I gave him the honor of hoisting the Afghan flag over that land once we did it. But the point I want to make here is do your very best today and every day to help make the world that you're in a better place tomorrow. Because you're going to leave this position. You're going to leave your department. You're going to graduate, as I call it, when you retire. And someone else is going to take that spot. Leave it for the next person. Because even when you're gone, you're still proud of that. You're still proud of your city. I love Kalamazoo. Love it to pieces. They pay for everything. They pay for your health care, tuition, your kids' tuition, tennis shoes, your mortgage. The department you work for, that jurisdiction, that city, that county, they pay for your life. We're truly servants of those communities. Do your absolute best, because it's not for us. When you're there and we're there and you're in your office and it's comfortable, just realize that you're only occupying space. It's just temporary. Do the absolute best you possibly can while you're there. As I mentioned in this book, I targeted 3 people when I realized I was going to write it. The general public, I wanted them to know really what we do. Officers that have been doing the job, like yourselves. As I go through each story, I don't just tell it and it's over. I found those textbooks to be absolutely boring, or those other cop books that we have read boring. I wanted to get something out of it. So I included the tactical aspect of just something simple, like when I would pull over a vehicle, I love to take that spotlight and turn it on during the day and point it at oncoming traffic, just to give more light going back there. That was before we had great light systems that we have today. Or angling it, the angling of a patrol vehicle to give you more cover. Well, it's not from the flying bullets that I was thinking. I was thinking, I am probably going to get hit from behind on the highway, because that's how most cops get it. And I'm not going to do a driver's side approach. It's predictable that a semi or a 16-year-old texting is going to take me out. I'm going to do a passenger side approach. Those things that a civilian reading through, like, wow, I never thought of that. No wonder they do that. Why do they ask stupid questions? Hi, where are you coming from? Where are you going? Is this your address? How long have you lived here? Is there anything illegal on you and your person in the car? Why do we ask stupid questions like that? I explain that to the general public in the book, so they realize we're always looking for deception. We're looking for something that's going to lead us to reasonable suspicion, where we can find probable cause and take somebody to jail, because that's what the sheepdog loves to do. You know, that's why we do it. So that population in the book was great to target. But new kids, if you've got someone in your life or at your department that is thinking about getting into law enforcement, throw this to them. They may read it and decide, that is not for me. I don't want to do it. Or it's going to motivate the hell out of them to want to do it. And then it was those officers that are out there doing the job. Because I was reading in the Law and Order magazine today, as I was thinking about this, the below 100 operation. Speed, slow down. Seat belts, wear them. Bulletproof vests, wear them. If we just did those three things, so many more officers would be alive today to talk about it. Owen would. He'd be alive. Scott would be alive. He'd be alive. My partner Eric, he had no chance. He got zapped with a high-powered rifle. It turned his vest into mush. He was dead before he hit the ground. Before, Statler walked up and put one through his head and blew the top of his skull off. Some things you're just not going to, if it's your day, it's your day. You're just not going to be able to avoid it. That was what I wanted to send to you. I wanted to give you a moment of inspiration so that you knew what was in that out of the darkness into the blue. I'm really excited to say that there are 7 universities that carry it as a supplemental textbook. Other departments are using it in their training divisions, and I hope that you find something in it. What I've gotten back from others, especially civilians, is they have found moments of resilience and perseverance from the incidents that I reveal, whether it's the stupid shit chapter I did at work where I talk about getting suspended twice for ridiculous policy violations. But hey, we work in the sunshine, and I wanted people to know, pay attention to detail, learn from my mistakes. Delivering a baby in the Radisson with no help whatsoever, just me and a pair of gloves. So there's some great things that are in there as far as good stories, but they have all found that they can apply a piece of it that inspires them to do something better in their life than what they're doing now. I hope that I have sent that message to you. I would love to answer any questions if you have any, and take it from there.